About the Sophia and Bumpy story, someone really wanted a summary. I'm just going to do it. If you want to go and listen to the whole 2 hours, 30 minutes, oh, you're really welcome to do that. It's in Spotify. So many people have been asking it's in Spotify. If you paid for Spotify, you're going to get it there. It's in Joel's account. Oh, that woman is amazing. Okay, now, this is not to discourage you guys from going to watch it, but again, still. So, I'm just going to tell you what happened here, okay? Now, Sophia and Bumpy, not these people's real names at all. Now, Sophia meets Bumpy at some smotcher place, and I think at this point the only person she knows is the smotcher guy in this town, but she bumps into Bumpy all the time. And then she did not have a laptop, and then Bumpy helped her with a laptop at that time to use for a while. And by that time, even before she met Bumpy, she was already like 2 months pregnant with some other guy's baby, and then she aborts it, and then Bumpy is with her throughout this whole journey. All right. And he's charming, he's amazing, he is great. Sophia's mother is not happy about this, that she's with someone, but again, still, they get together, and eventually they're adults, they start dating. And as this relationship progresses, this guy's baby mama starts texting her, which should have been the first red flag. Already, not texting, actually insulting her via text. But now she's thinking, no, this is my boyfriend. I spent time in his house, so obviously, no. And the boyfriend was, Bumpy now is saying the same thing, you spend time in my house, so she shouldn't bother you at all. So that relationship changes from that to now, to a point where he's now becoming distant for some reason. And he gives her excuses why he's distant to work and this and this and this and that. And then it gets to a point, they break up. 1 month later, Bumpy comes back. When Bumpy comes back, he's now charming again. He wants her again. He wants to continue to date her again. She accepts. She goes back into this relationship, firm and steady as well. And mind you, throughout this conversation, there's nothing like Bumpy was a provider. Not really. That's what I was thinking at first. She was a waitress, and then she was still a student. She was actually 20, as I've said that earlier. And then now they continue to date, and then one time, Sophia's mother leaves and goes to Bumpy's house. Bumpy was actually living the same compound with the mom, and then she goes and causes a bit of fracas there because Bumpy is inconsistent, all right? So Bumpy's mother starts saying that this girl's mother is rude, and so is the girl. Okay, now she decides to go to Bumpy to find out why Bumpy has been quiet. And then all of a sudden, now Bumpy has involved the mother in all this. Bumpy chases her away, tells her to go, and then still, she loves Bumpy, so they work things out. And then Bumpy decides to tell her, because my mother thinks you're rude, this is what we're gonna do. I'm going to have like a second wife type of situation, where you will be the second wife, but I will have like a first wife to present to my mother. She is not married to this guy yet, but he has already told her what he wants to do. So what does he do? He gets into polyamory, or whatever that thing is called. So he makes her look for like women so that they can have like a threesome, so she can get used to it. So she gets into Tinder, finds this women, and then they have a whole threesome almost 6 to 7 times with women. Mind you, she was not bi when she met Bumpy. But anyway, she continues with this relationship as Bumpy is still with other women. And then at some point she moves in with Bumpy. After moving in with Bumpy, Bumpy's the one who asked her to move in. She moved in, and then she got pregnant. And then by this time, Bumpy and Sophia's mother have already formed like this kind of relationship or friendship or whatever that was. They made things up. Then Sophia decides to tell the mother, oh, I'm pregnant. And the mother is like, oh, okay, then we need to do something. We need to call wazee wa boma, wakuje tuongee. So that's what happened. I don't think they were legally married. They just called like they had like this whole traditional thing that was going on. So after the whole traditional meeting that they had, she is now moving in, and Bumpy decides to say that we are starting things on a clean slate. And mind you, she's the one who was working at the time. I think that's when Bumpy lost the job. I'm not quite sure. So she's the one who's the provider. I don't know. So Bumpy does not stop. He continues to talk to these other women. And during the last trimester of her pregnancy, all right, Bumpy wants to get intimate with her, and then she says no, and then Bumpy says no, now you need to get me someone to get intimate with. And he brushes it off as a joke, but no, it's not a joke. Then one time, I'm going to call this lady Lucy, okay? I don't know why I wanted to call her Lucy. So one time, this Lucy girl, who is one of the women that they were having a threesome with, gets back into their life. Like, she comes to visit. She texts Sophia that she wants to come visit, and there's nothing more, and then she just comes visits. And then she stays the night. And then even the next day, and then Sophia asks Lucy to leave, and then Bumpy slaps Sophia, and that's the first time Bumpy starts being violent. Now she still stayed, and then now Lucy leaves, Fast forward, she's always manipulated by Bumpy's mother. Bumpy's mother is always there telling her how to be submissive and stuff like that. Lucy comes back to this house to help her out because now she's pregnant, and she did not find a problem with that. And then at some point, the husband is not sleeping with Sophia, neither is he sleeping with Lucy. And then Lucy decides to send Sophia to Bumpy. Like, go and ask Bumpy why he's not sleeping with me. That's the sole reason why I came here. And now I'm not having any, And then Sophia goes and talks to Bumpy. And then Bumpy's like, no, I don't feel like doing that. I want us to start things on a clean slate. So Lucy is there the whole time. Okay, even when I think she gives birth. But Bumpy's still abusive, okay? Throughout the whole pregnancy thing. He's still abusive, beats her, and then he's always in a trance. Like, anytime he beats her, and then she reminds Bumpy, oh my God, I'm pregnant. Bumpy, like, comes back into his senses and says sorry all the time. Like, he was that charming guy after apologizing and all that. So Lucy comes, helps out. I don't know. Bumpy doesn't stop being abusive. Bumpy continues to hit her. She continues to fight. Bumpy continues to hit her, and then Bumpy and the mother keep on telling her that she's the one who's not submissive, she's the one who's not a good woman, she's the one who is always annoying Bumpy all the time. And then by the time she stops going to work, because now her face can show bruises and stuff, and some of her clients are even worried about her, but now she has to provide. She already has a baby. And then one time she comes to the sitting room and finds Lucy and Bumpy intimate, and then she got very hurt. And then Lucy leaves and says sorry for causing commotion in their marriage. And then she says, oh, okay, interesting. Now, this okay, interesting thing is something that people have noticed a lot throughout the whole... Like, anytime something happens that's really bad, she says, okay, interesting, all the time. So Bumpy keeps on hitting her with things like a phone, like a stool, like choking her, like having sex with her by force, of course. That is, of course, you know what it's called, right? And then she continues to stay. Then one day she decides to tell her best friend everything. The best friend goes to tell her mother, and then the mother comes, and then they tell her to leave. And then she says, no, I'm still gonna give it like 2 more weeks. I think something like that. I'm still gonna give it 2 more weeks so that I can show you guys who this guy is. And then throughout the 2 weeks, he tries to be nice. And then throughout the end of the 2 weeks, he hits her again, and then he chokes her to the point of actually dying. And then Bumpy's mother comes and still blames her for making Bumpy angry. Still the same thing. So at this time, at least I'm repeating myself. She then went and got a P3 because now she was already hit and they could see. Now she could go to the police. Now, mind you, Bumpy's family were not willing to allow her to leave. They all feared Bumpy. They all were supporting Bumpy, including Bumpy's father, who was not living in the country, Bumpy's brother, and at one point they were not letting her leave the house without, like, with the daughter. Okay, now don't ask me about the other first baby mama or the other baby mamas. Apparently Bumpy has like another baby mama and another, and now this one, and other women. I don't know. And these other women are strong enough to say that Bumpy is their man throughout their whole relationship. And then now she goes, gets a pre-3, and then they sign a whole thing for custody. She gets 100% custody of the child, and they start co-parenting. And then she meets up with Bumpy again, and then Bumpy tries to make things right, but and then she couldn't allow it, and now they're co-parenting. And now she talks about how abusive that marriage was. And Jules asks her, well, like, why did you stay throughout all this? And then she just says, you know what, I just wanted validation. I haven't grown with a dad, so I just wanted Bumpy to choose me. I loved Bumpy. I trusted Bumpy. It was all hope. And she says pretty much that's what happens in most abusive relationships. And she's also asked how she feels about coming from a single home, and then she's also a single mother, and how that affects her and stuff like that, whether she believes that she'll ever find love again. And basically that is the whole Sophia and Bumpy situation. I don't know, some people are saying, some of the people listening to this podcast, they got to 1 hour 14 and they were like pissed. It was like a whole thing. But again, no judgment, honestly. I don't know what was happening there. But that's the summary. You tell me what you think. If you listen to the whole thing, that's the summary. And please go listen to it. Jules is amazing. Really. She is.